Okay, and welcome back to Our Herd, the Toledo Zoo's official podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Corey.
Hold on.
Sorry, where should I be looking?
It's conversational, so you can just look
you
at
just
us.
talk to us.
Yeah,
We're addressing,
I saw that look of panic on your face and you're
I guess should I be like,
hey guys.
Yes. Welcome back, everybody, to Our Herd, the Toledo Zoo's official podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Corey.
I'm Caitlin.
And we're coming back at you from yet another great episode.
Yep.
That episode was so cool. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, it was with yet another one of our dynamic duos that work here at the zoo in our bird department.
Yeah, Cynthia and Nate did a great job. They talked to us about their baby flamingos and how they're mom and mommy. And that was just a really great episode to learn more about why birds are so cool and why they really enjoy taking care of the birds we have here at the zoo.
Yep. Despite how smelly or noisy they might be.
They're still a lot of fun.
They're still a lot of fun. They're super cute, which I'm sure makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, so definitely go watch or listen to that video when you get a chance. It's a great one. Corey and I are both Swifties, and during this last episode filming with Cynthia and Nate, Cynthia is also a Swiftie. And that was the day that Taylor and Travis announced their engagement. Cynthia texted us right afterwards, and she was like, guys, they got engaged. I wish you would have done that during the podcast episode.
Show, yeah, our phones would have been blowing up.
Because we would have been...
It would have completely derailed even further from Labubu's.
Oh yeah, we would have had to stop the full podcast.
Taylor got engaged while we were recording the podcast.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Even when you did find out, like we went back in the security cameras and you were still cleaning up in here and you had bust out the door, freaking out, trying to get anybody to talk about it with you.
I need to talk to somebody who cares.
It was life altering in that moment.
No one cared.
Not enough people cared. Not enough people.
We cared. That's all that matters.
That is all that matters.
But back to the important things. Not that Taylor Swift and Travis getting engaged.
Other important things.
Yeah.
We're coming back at you here today. We're switching things up again. So these last few episodes, we've had dynamic duo. But this time we're riding solo. We've got somebody who has a lot of stuff on their shoulders and they're carrying it around. And they are always on top of things because there's a lot of responsibility that their position includes.
Dr. Matt Cross, thanks for coming. Thanks for riding solo. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Dr. Matt Cross. I'm our Director of Vertebrate Conservation here for the Toledo Zoo.
How long have you been here with us now, Matt?
I started as a part-timer in 2016 and I was full-time in January 2017.
Cool. What were you doing as a part-timer when you had first gotten hired?
I was a seasonal technician. So that was when I finished my PhD at Bowling Green and I was working 3 jobs, 6 days a week. So I was here working 2 consulting gigs. And then this just transitioned into a full-time job.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Okay. What kind of responsibilities did you have like back then? Like I know with your programs now you handle a lot, but were things more simple back then? Was there just like less back then? How have things changed?
It was a lot simpler back then. It was, just me solo doing our maintaining our turtle and snake surveys, radio telemetry. Most of my days were spent out in the field doing work. I spent very little time at the zoo itself. That's changed dramatically now.
And you said you went to BG. First off, Falkia, also a falcon of my own. Falkia, caw-caw. Anyway, What did you major in? Because a lot of our listeners, they listen because they either want to get into this field or they're like just super interested. What did you major in and how did that get you to where you are today?
So at BGSU, my PhD was in ecology and I was able to, that's a very broad topic. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want. So I focused on the ecology of turtles for my dissertation. But prior to that, I got my bachelor's in biology from Central Michigan University. Then I have 2 master's degrees, again, from Central Michigan in conservation biology and geographic information sciences.
Wow.
Did you always know that you wanted to get into this type of work? Or like at what point did you kind of steer in this direction? I
didn't know I wanted to end up here, but I knew I wanted to be a herpetologist from grade school. I remember in like 6th grade, they had a, dress up as what your career day. And I was a herpetologist. I had like a lab coat and a rubber snake. That's what it was back then. My dad gave me a herpetology book when I was a kid and I just gobbled it up, so I always knew this is where I wanted to end up, but the actual path and, getting here was, kind of circuitous, but this is pretty much, I knew what I wanted to do from a very young age.
That's awesome.
Cool. And for a lot of people, you still work for the Toledo Zoo, but zookeeping isn't really your job. Like that's not your position. So how does your position in a zoo setting differ from what our other zookeepers are doing?
For what I do, a lot of it's oversight and then field work. And so Whereas our keeper staff, they spend a lot of time on grounds and they're focused on the animals and the front of house kind of thing. We're in charge of our conservation programs, which are mostly off grounds. And so I do very little of the actual, I guess, bits and pieces that like keepers would do. Most of my role is research oversight for our local conservation programs.
Okay.
But you also oversee some of the international conservation. So here at the Toledo Zoo, especially it being our 125th anniversary, we're really focusing on our mission and what our true goals are here at the zoo, and that is conservation. And so, like I said, you focus on a lot of the international stuff, but you're very hands-on with the local conservation, correct?
Yeah. So I oversee all of our vertebrate conservation programs in some way, shape, or form. Report to me, or I just kind of ghost pilot it. But yeah, we have a very large international conservation footprint. It's, one of our trademarks, but then we also have, and what we're very proud about is our local conservation efforts. So that's one of the things that really defined early on Wild Toledo, which is now, shifted to our invertebrate and prairie programs. And then I'm our vertebrate conservation. So all of our vertebrate conservation programs, lake sturgeon, hellbenders, copperbelly water snakes, blandings, turtles, Allegheny wood rats, those are kind of what I oversee. And then I really focus on the research side of it. So the stuff that people probably aren't as familiar with and happens behind the scenes, but we do some really cool stuff. Yeah.
And for our listeners that might not know what vertebrate conservation means, can you explain what vertebrate?
Yeah.
What that means.
So pretty much anything that has a spine. So our conservation department is really divided into two sections, mostly because of the amount of work, right? So people are probably very familiar with Wild Toledo. They handle our native prairies and the butterflies and our local invertebrates, so our insect monitoring and that kind of thing. I'm on the other side. I do our vertebrates, so anything that has a backbone. That's going to be our turtles, snakes, fish, mammals, those kinds of things.
And it hasn't always been all of these animals. I've noticed that your programs have slowly expanded over the years. So, because I remember when I had first started, it was mostly like the turtle research that you guys were doing. For your turtle programs, what kind of stuff are you guys doing with them? What kind of work are you doing with local turtle populations? Tell me all about that.
The methods for our turtle program are the same for a lot of these programs. That's what's kind of nice. And that's why we're able to diversify, because it's a lot of the same methods. Turtles, our biggest focus has been long-term monitoring of local populations. So we have a few threatened species in the area. So blandings turtle and spotted turtle. And the zoo has been monitoring those since as early as 2005. And so when I got here, I picked up that program. We've kind of expanded, worked with some statewide grants to, really broaden our efforts. So a lot of that involves, population surveys and radio telemetry. And so that's looking at our population numbers so we can estimate how many there are and keep track of it. And then looking at where they move and how they use habitats. So then we can look at the landscape and say, okay, here are some barriers to movements, and here are some things that might be affecting the species. And we work really closely with land managers and our local agencies so we can say, okay, here's some conservation actions you guys can take to really improve things for these species.
Oh, cool. So it's not just us. We're working with other local organizations and partnering up with them too.
Yeah. A lot of these programs are massive partnerships. To list the number of partners would be exhausting. And so, but the thing is with a lot of our conservation programs, it's very rarely just us. It's one of those, it takes a village things.
Right.
And so we have a lot of partners in the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Division of Wildlife, especially. Those are our biggest local partners that really help us facilitate these programs.
I love turtles. I really do. They're one of my favorite reptiles. So not just they're cute. We want to keep them around, but what kind of ecological benefits do they have? And why is it important to have these conservation efforts for them?
I feel like we have a responsibility to ensure that things that we've seen will be around for our children. So independent of that, a lot of these species play critical roles in their ecosystem, often unappreciated. So we might think, oh, it's a snake, oh, it's a turtle. What does it actually do? In reality, these species that we typically don't assign a lot of value to actually play a big role in their ecosystem. So turtles, for example, if we talk about biomass, which is really just the number of species in the habitat when you're looking at the whole ecosystem, we tend to think of and focus on our large vertebrates, right? So if we're talking about biomass in Africa, you think bigger is better, right? So we're talking like our charismatic megafauna, so elephants, rhinos, that kind of thing. In reality, when you look at what actually makes up the majority of the ecosystem, you're looking at these smaller animals. So around here, in forests, salamanders make up a huge biomass because there's so many of them, more so than your big vertebrates, right? Because you might have say, a population of mountain lions on the landscape, predators are generally, you don't expect to find as many of them.
Mhm.
These little salamanders, these turtles, especially aquatic turtles like that we see with our river turtles, they make up a very large portion of the biomass. And what that translates into is a really key component of the ecosystem. And so I tend to view these ecosystems as like a game of Jenga, right? So we start pulling pieces out. The tower might stay there, but the more we pull out, like the less stable it is. And so these turtles, they, especially because of their life history strategies, right? They produce a lot of young that don't live to see adulthood. And so those young that don't live are really important prey species for a lot of other organisms. The nests and the eggs that don't hatch and they decay are a positive nutrient boost for the native grasses and stuff that help stabilize these dunes and whatever, or these sandy areas where they nest. I think it's one of those things that we tend not to think very highly of turtles, but they do play a pretty key component in our local populations.
Wow. I guess I didn't realize that, like you said, the eggs that aren't making it or the turtle hatchlings that aren't making it, they're still providing benefits to the ecosystem. I didn't think about that because a lot of the times we're thinking, we need all of these individuals to survive and grow to adulthood. But you're saying that they produce so much and the ones that don't make it are still beneficial, but having them around is again beneficial.
And that's in a natural system. So like the biggest thing we run into is, and this is where we get to like, all of them make it versus some of them is like, this isn't a perfect world. Like, we've altered the landscape so much that, the biggest example I can think of would be raccoons. Raccoons benefit from a couple of things we call predator release. So we've eliminated a lot of the things that eat raccoons, like wolves and that kind of thing. So they have no natural predators, so their numbers are higher. They're also called subsidized predators. They eat our trash, and we essentially boost their populations by giving them free food. So they're at higher numbers. And so we have currently these unnatural situations where we have higher predation than we would expect. And so that's where it kind of gets into a weird gray area of, in a normal world, they produce more that would survive because they only expect a few to survive to live to adulthood. And like they live so long that they just need to replace themselves once. But now we see with urbanization and that kind of thing, these unnatural situations where predators are so abundant, where they're really putting this heavy pressure on the turtles and really knocking their numbers down.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up is you've mentioned a few specific species. So it was the spotted turtle and the Blanding's turtle. What kind of specific issues are those species facing right now, and why are their populations so low?
So the biggest one, if we want to use, Ohio as an example, with turtles especially, or any of our wetland species, would be loss of wetlands. So Ohio has lost about 92% of its historic wetlands, most notably the loss of the Great Black Swamp that used to connect the western basin of Lake Erie to Indiana. And so if we're talking about like Blanding's turtles or a wetland specialist, like losing that was just absolutely awful. So habitat modification and fragmentation, roads are really big for these species. So Blanding's turtles are one of the species that they move around a lot to try to find nests. And that means the females are encountering cars on roads. And we've seen with a lot of population models, the higher female mortality we have, the quicker those populations get into like what's called an extinction vortex, where they exist as like almost as ghost populations, where you go out, like turtles live such a long time. You might go out to a place and say, okay, I see 5 Blanding's turtles a year. And you go back next year, I see another 5. You're like, they're doing fine. But you never see the young because they're being predated by these mesopredators. And so this ghost population is, you see them and they exist, but they're actually not functioning. They're not reproducing. So the other main threat would be these mesopredators. So these artificially high numbers of organisms like raccoons, skunks, possums that are preying on these nests that actually use them as a resource. They'll go there annually. It's just like anything else in the environment, right? The turtles nest the same time annually. I was like, well, it's June. It's time to go to the egg store and get turtle eggs, right?
They remember where their lunch is.
Exactly. And for a lot of species like raccoons, they learn from each other. And so it's a familial and kind of like passed down thing. But I mean, any number of issues that aren't unique to other species, pollution, diseases, illegal pet trade is really big with turtles. But I mean, so none of these are really unique to turtles, but their life history strategy means they live a long time. They need a long time to reproduce, to replace themselves. And so they're very vulnerable at those earlier stages. Like we know for turtles, we need the adults to live a long time. Because some of these Blanding's turtles are over 90 years old.
What?
It was I had the opportunity to work with some people at the University of Michigan's biostation up there, and they've had a very long-term mark recapture program for Blanding's turtles, dating back to, I believe, the 1950s. And they had an individual that they've recorded, over the decades, and they estimate it's about 94 years old. And that turtle looks no different than the turtles we find around here. And when they caught it, it was an adult. So the 94 is honestly a low end estimate. It could be older than that. And so
crazy.
These species live a long time. And so from a conservation perspective, it's really fascinating to think about how they persist in a landscape that has changed in their lifetime. When I was an egg, this road wasn't here, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm an adult, and now I've got to navigate this road. It's pretty amazing to me that they are still on the landscape, especially in areas where we see a lot of fragmentation, like the Toledo area.
You talked about how you guys do a lot of turtle research and you monitor these populations through grant funding. But in recent years, you guys have been taking further action for those populations. What kind of things have you and other partners done, whether it be maintaining them or helping them rebound?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things we do is we work with our conservation partners. So obviously, Toledo Zoo doesn't own turtle survey land. So we've got partners in the area like Metro Parks, Division of Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, where they're on their properties. And one of the biggest things we can do is work with their land managers to make conservation recommendations. And so we have a couple examples of times where we've met with these agencies and made recommendations, and they've been able to make nesting sites, improve ponds for turtles to make them better habitats for the turtles in the area. We started in 2020, head starting. So what head starting is it's this very common theme with a lot of our programs. So sturgeon, snakes, turtles, hellbenders is we get them at a young age, oftentimes eggs, and we grow them to a point where they're no longer bite size, I guess. So like when a lot of these things hatch, even turtles, they're about the size of a $50 and their shells aren't hard yet. So pretty much anything that will put them in their mouth will.
That's a
they're
snack for the
like
raccoons.
like turtle popcorn, right?
Yeah. Oh my.
Turtle popcorn.
And so what we do is we grow them to a point where they're not as vulnerable. So, the sturgeon, turtles, snakes, hellbenders, it's getting them to a size where they're less bite size, and then they can defend themselves and move around. And so that really, we release those into the population and hope that they eventually help reestablish or augment that population. With turtles, it takes a long time because the turtles we work with don't reach sexual maturity until like 15 to 20 years. And so they've got to wait a long time before they can reproduce. And so we're doing these head starting actions. We really won't be able to see the long-term effects for maybe not even in our lifetime. But we've already started to recapture some ones we released. And so they are surviving. In addition to the research and our conservation recommendations, the head starting is one of the big ways that the Toledo Zoo is involved in helping these populations.
Mm-hmm.
I like seeing how your teams didn't simply say, well, let's just put more turtles out there. That'll fix it. You guys looked at the landscape and you said, how can we fix the landscape? I like when you were talking about fragmentation and creating corridors and just making sure that the environment can sustain a larger population of them.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is trying to make sure that we've taken care of a lot of these conservation issues because we don't just want to be feeding the raccoons or putting turtles back out on the road to get squished, So working with this goes back to our conservation partners is we're doing the head starting, they're the boots on the ground doing the habitat restoration and that kind of thing. And so working with these partners to make sure we've addressed as many of these conservation issues as possible is really critical for our augmentation and reintroduction programs. And we've seen this, be very successful with, turtles, sturgeon, the snakes so far. So it's a recipe that really works for us.
Mm-hmm. We've been able to go out a few times with you guys while you're doing surveys, and we put on the waders. We got our camera gear and we're chugging through the
risking
swamps.
The camera gear
risking
every
the
time.
camera gear. Yeah, I always say that if I'm going down, I'm throwing the camera towards you and you better catch it.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see you guys at work. Other work that you guys do that you mentioned is our sturgeon. And we have some really exciting sturgeon events coming up this season. We got our Sturgeon Fest. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the heck is a sturgeon and why are they important for our ecosystem?
Yeah, so lake sturgeon they're fascinating because they're just like this ancient lineage of fish. In the Great Lakes, they're our largest species of fish. They can get to be 6 to 8 feet long. They're just massive. The females can be hundreds of pounds. And so they're just very iconic. They're this ancient species. They have a lot of the same kind of life strategies, right? So they live a long time. They don't reach sexual maturity for a while, and they produce more offspring than they need because they're not going to survive. And so when you're talking about a large sturgeon that can have thousands of eggs per pound of fish, I don't think it's easy for us to fathom the amount of eggs they used to produce. So I've heard a number of reports, and they say you used to be able to walk across the river on sturgeon.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that's true? Do you think that you could have walked across sturgeon's back across the Maumee River?
I tend to think it's a slight exaggeration, but I do also think we don't appreciate the number of species, the number of these individuals used to have. Like if we look at things like the passenger pigeon, where you hear reports of like they used to blot out the sun. That's hard for us to imagine right now. And so if we kind of apply the same approach, like I think walking across the river on sturgeon is an exaggeration, but I think there might have been a lot. But that also contributed to their downfall, right? There's so many in one spot, they're easy to harvest. But when we look at these egg mats they produce from just, a dozen females, there was a spare egg mat the size of me. I'm 6 feet tall. And so like large. My body shape. And if you can think of hundreds of thousands of fish producing that, so many eggs, that would have been such a positive nutrient boost for our ecosystem. So food for a lot of species. So, you're talking millions of eggs. They're not all going to hatch, So even if you have a really low survival for these eggs, a lot of other species are going to feed on them. So it'd be very beneficial for our sport fish like walleye, anything else. And if we think about the issues facing Lake Erie, nutrients running off into the lakes and rivers, causing these toxic algal blooms, sturgeon egg masses like rotting or being eaten would have been a great positive nutrient reinforcement for this ecosystem. And so the sturgeon probably had an unappreciated role in their ecosystem because of just the sheer amount of eggs. Once they're adults, not much is going to eat a 6 foot long fish that's an armored tank. But at those smaller stages, their eggs are about the size of a pinhead or a tapioca ball. Everything's going to eat them. So that's insects, macroinvertebrates, small vertebrates, like everything. And so the sturgeon, I think, would have been they would have been a really critical role in their ecosystem.
Yeah. And these fish, they look like they belong back in the dinosaur times.
They really do.
But for a lot of locals that live in Northwest Ohio, and especially like Toledo, if they hadn't heard of it before, you'll mention it and they're like, there is no way that this fish used to live in our river. That river, the Maumee River, there's no way those fish lived in there. And yes, they did. And so much so that you could walk across the river. What led to that ultimate decline and extinction from this river? Pollution
and damming played a role. So, if you're familiar with like the Cuyahoga River, it's well known because it used to burn. Or it burned. Addition, dams would interrupt with their spawning routes. The biggest was overfishing. So the sturgeon, to me, are a fantastic example of how we can have a negative and positive effect in a short amount of time. So if you look at the history of lake sturgeon in the Great Lakes, in the mid to late 1800s, they were seen as a trash species because you have this massive armored fish. You catch them in your nets. They're very strong. They're going to rip your net, and that's your livelihood, right? You're losing fish that contribute to your income because of this fish. So they'd club them, throw them up on the banks. And then as the European fishery crashed, there was value seen in this. And so mostly is the harvesting for the caviar. So those eggs, when you process the sturgeon eggs into caviar, the price increases, tenfold. There's a video online of Atlantic sturgeon where one fish can be worth up to like an estimated $300,000. Now, Atlantic sturgeon get much larger than our sturgeon, but it gives you an idea of like the price, the price increase. And so back in the early 1900s, if you had to walk across the river on sturgeon scenario, you could make your entire year's worth of salary on fish in a few weeks. So we hit them really hard. And we, at the peak sturgeon harvest in the Great Lakes, about 8.4 million pounds of sturgeon were harvested annually. 5.2 million of that came from Lake Erie. So we hit them really, really hard. So from the time that they became seen as a valuable species in the early 1900s to late 1800s to the 1930s, we really hammered them. So eventually, like the Canadian harvest went from like 3.2 million down to 2,700 pounds. We estimated that we removed about 80% of lake sturgeon from Lake Erie before, everything was finally like, okay, we need to conserve this species. And so the overfishing really played a role in that. And this is an example like we see with these long-lived species like turtles. If you really start hammering those large females that are the ones for the eggs where you want the caviar, your population is going to decline very quickly. But since we've started our reintroduction program in 2018, it was the first time we released the fish. We had started in the Maumee. In 2019, we started to see recaptures out in the lake. So in 1 year, a commercial angler was recapturing fish released in 2018 and they tripled in size in 1 year out in the Lake Erie. So there's plenty of food. And then just last year, we started to see anglers at the Grand Rapids Dam pulling in lake sturgeon that are about 3 feet long, which, we weren't down there to scan them for their tags, but if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like we haven't seen people catching sturgeon like that before we started releasing. And the size of the sturgeon they're catching down at the Grand Rapids Dam are the size that they're still catching out in Lake Erie that are attributed to our 2018 and 2019 releases. So we have 3.5 foot or more sturgeon from our 2018, 2019 releases that are out there swimming right now. So it's again, to me, this is an awesome example. Like we can have an insane impact on species when we're not thinking about it, but when we put our minds to it, we can have a great positive influence. We've already seen that with the lake sturgeon. We've got to wait a few years because again, they have delayed sexual maturity and we won't know if they're reproducing for another, 5-ish, 10-ish years. But already the signs we've seen are indicating that we're making an impact and we're hopeful that this is going to be a great step in moving forward for this species.
I love the sturgeon program so much because there's so much thinking that's going on in the background of it too. Like even down to, you guys collect eggs and the gametes from a population that's closely related to like almost indistinguishable from the original species, right?
So we used to have 19 spawning populations in Lake Erie. Now we have 2. And so as much as we really try to preserve genetics as much as possible, but of those 2 populations, there's only one that's robust enough or has enough individuals we can pull eggs from and not impact them negatively. So we are trying our best to repopulate the lake with, genetic distinctiveness to make these a viable population, with the caveat that we used to have 19 and now we have 2. So there's actually a great deal of work behind the scenes that has gone into, kind of governing the sturgeon program in terms of, numbers we release annually. We try to get gametes from unique individuals each year, mix things around, again, to try to really focus on making this as genetically viable population as we possibly can.
The other thing I like is the controlled variables that you guys have in the process as well, because half of the fish are raised here at the Toledo Zoo right off the Maumee River. And after talking with you through many years on this, you guys bring water up from the Maumee River, and that's how you raise them up, is in the same water that you want them to come back to. And then the other half is at the Genoa fish hatchery. So that's more of like just a clean, clear water source or something that's just like not directly related as far as locale is concerned. And so that's another thing that you guys are experimenting too, but you're not going to see the results from that for quite a few more years, it's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And it's also interesting that like we're seeing the beginning of this. You said it only started in 2018. And so who knows how much
we're getting there. Believe it or not, we're in 2025. We're getting close to that 10-year mark.
Which is crazy to think. But at the same time, 50 years down the line, who knows what kind of impact they're going to be having.
And we've served as a great pilot for the state of Ohio. So we're the first and only stream-side rearing facility in the state currently. But because of the success we've seen in Maumee River, there are now releases planned in Cuyahoga and I think eventually Sandusky. And so this has been, because of the success we've seen, it's really expanding. And yeah, it's one of the things I always forget is, the two-sided approach to this project, the stream side rearing facility versus Genoa. And, the big idea there is to test which rearing strategy is better. So we raise them on the Maumee River with the hope that they'll imprint on the chemical cues in the river. So when they come back to spawn, they'll smell like, oh, the Maumee River is where I'm supposed to be, right?
Home.
That's where I'm supposed to, yeah, exactly.
So cool.
That's so
whereas
weird.
in Genoa, they're raised on, the water they're raised on is like pure as the mountain spring water. It's unnaturally clear. They actually have to heat it up. So we have a lot of different variables affecting us in the Maumee River because we don't chemically filter the water that goes into the facility. So anything that goes in the river comes in the facility. So the fish have a much harder go at it. And this is part of a larger project, testing out rearing strategies and return rates because, Genoa is a department store sized area that is designed for raising fish. They can raise hundreds of thousands of sturgeon much cheaper. So, these numbers are old. But, Genoa, it was estimated early on, it cost them like $2 per fish to raise from egg to release size. I estimated early on with, granted, there's a lot of issues we had. But it's like $20 to $30 for us to raise a fish. But hopefully we see a higher return rate with fish from the Maumee River. We always forget that this is actually part of a really cool, larger project, but we won't know the answer for like 15 to 20 years. And I joke that by the time we figure out if it works, everyone else will be retired and I'll be the one left stuck with a check. So if it works, great. If not, then it's Matt's fault.
And so when it comes to the sturgeon program, there's just so much more to talk about with it. So thankfully, on our YouTube channel and all over our website, we have all kinds of details about every single one of these programs. So the turtle program that we've discussed so far, the Lake Erie sturgeon program that we've talked about, there's so much that goes into it.
We could have an individual episode for each species that you...
Yeah. So just know if you're listening or watching, like if there are any questions in your head, well, what about this? What about that? Where are they getting the fish from? Are those fish okay? Like how many fish are they releasing?
What do you mean caviar?
What do you mean caviar? Like we talk about that. We answer all of that in the many videos that we've produced for them. But when you're talking about generationally, how this is going to be a generational project, you guys have a really cool program that you're doing, and it's an internship program. Why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about your awesome internship program?
Yeah, so we have a number of conservation programs we work with, obviously. And a few years ago, I decided to start an internship program for some of our local high schoolers. Focusing first on partners, existing partners, mostly in TPS, with the goal of providing high school students with opportunities to gain conservation experience. So, as a hiring manager, I'm very aware of this. I call it the catch-22 of hiring, where as a manager, I'd love it if people, when I'm looking at people to hire, if I see someone who already has the experience, like someone who's done turtle work, I'm like, oh, I don't have to train that person. So I want that person. But as a young person trying to get involved in this program, you want a job that gets you that experience. And so it's this, well, I want people to have experience versus people want the experience to get the job and, that kind of thing. So started working with some of our teacher partners here in TPS to provide internship programs for students who we're interested in conservation. To me, it's been wildly successful. We work with our teacher partners. They recommend students they think would be either are interested in this program or benefit from this experience. And we have not been disappointed. These high school students are stellar. Within a few weeks of training, they are able to function at the same level as the college students I hire. I mean, what we do isn't rocket science, but it's really cool to be able to see high schoolers work at a level that they can. And I'll admit that I think high schoolers are at a different level than I was when I was in high school.
Yeah. Well, and you say, not rocket science, but I'm watching these teenagers draw blood on a turtle.
That looks like rocket science
like
to
that,
me.
There is no way that I can do the same thing as what they're doing. And you've already seen some really good success from that program. Like you've got kids moving on to college, I'm hearing, right?
Yeah. I've got students who at 14 can draw blood better than most people I know. It's, really just trying to find that thing that works for them and reinforcing it. And they do, they have a great skill set. And it works out really well. And yeah, some of our interns have graduated or going on to college, pursuing similar degrees. So it's really kind of cool to see this program evolve. And it's just been a great experience.
Yeah. And you hope that they're going to come back and work for you.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Please come back. I will hire you. Once you get your degree, I'll hire you full time.
And that's one of the difficult things. They all want to come back and work. And, as a manager, the hard part between reinforcing, okay, well, you have the experience now, I need you but also it's also time for other people to have the experience too. It's a weird balancing act, but in general, we've had really great responses from the program from students, parents, and teachers.
Yeah.
Incredible. And this is a paid internship program.
Yeah. Right? So one of the goals is, acknowledging that high schoolers have a lot of limitations to getting involved and giving them a leg up from college students is there are a lot of barriers to anyone trying to enter this field. And I've got a whole obnoxious flow chart, but if we look at things like cost, so opportunities given up. So I can work for Matt for X dollars an hour from June to August, or I can work year round at a grocery store as a bagger or whatever. Sports, that kind of thing. A lot of internships are not paid or you have a minimal stipend. So in order to make it more enticing, we wanted to offer paid internships. That's something I'm a very loud advocate for, is making sure that they're compensated. But in addition to that, there are a lot of other barriers. So for high schoolers, transportation. So if the students request it, we'll provide transportation to and from work. So they don't have to worry about that. We provide lunches daily, one less thing to worry about. And then we also provide one of the big limitations is specialized equipment. So when you look at the cost of the things that we're dragging around in the field, it's, it can be very expensive. So we provide them with backpacks, waders, protective equipment like hats, sunscreen, that kind of thing. So there's literally nothing they have to do other than show up to be involved. It's one of the things as a zoo, I think we're in a really unique position to do, because when I talk to colleagues, and even something as, simple as offering transportation to and from work. In some years, that's been an hour on the front end of the day. And if I'm talking to my academic colleagues who are researchers, they can't fathom losing an hour of research, 2 hours of research every day. We're still doing research, but we're able to flex some of our time so we can accommodate these students. And it's been very successful. The students unanimously have loved the program.
Yeah. And they're so grateful for it as well. We've had the opportunity to go out a few times to document the students and the work that they do.
It is so cool.
They're so cool.
It gets me emotional sometimes because there's days where you have the kids bring their parents out and they're out all in waders in the swamp collecting turtles with their parents, and their parents get to see firsthand the impact that you and your team and your programs are making on them.
Yeah. And I remember, I think it was like last summer or 2 summers ago, we got to go out when you guys were releasing some Copperbellies, and there was a huge group of them and they're all trudging along in these waders faster than I can ever imagine.
That's the other thing. They have so much energy.
Yeah, they have so much energy. They're not complaining because they're so grateful to be there and to be getting this crazy experience, and they're all hands-on. They want to be doing everything. Meanwhile, I'm getting stuck in the mud in my waders. I'm like, they're helping me out of the mud. I'm like, oh, thank you guys. But it's really just a cool program, and I hope that it continues.
Oh, you mentioned the word Copperbellies. We want to make sure that people know what we're talking about when it comes to Copperbellies. And that's a good segue because your interns are really involved in that program too. So Copperbelly water snakes. Why don't you talk to me about them for a minute? What are they and what is going on with them?
Yeah, it's one of the interns' favorite programs. So the Copperbelly water snake is a federally threatened species, but it's really interesting where it's just the northern population segment we have up here. So down south, they're not threatened, but where Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana meet, it's far enough away from the regular population. It's been determined a distinct population segment, and that segment has federal listing. So they're federally threatened. And they're a species that we've, researchers from Michigan and Indiana have, documented declines in over the last couple decades. They're a very pretty snake, jet black on the top, this very, orangish copper belly. And they're only found in one location or one region we know of in Ohio. And so we got the Fish and Wildlife Service worked with us to develop a conservation plan or a captive breeding program for the Copperbelly water snake, and we hit the ground running. So we collected some, and we have a captive rearing and propagation facility. So our goal is to breed them in captivity, head start them like we talked about with sturgeon and turtles, and then release them. And this involves a lot of radio telemetry. So we put transmitters in the snakes, very similar to what we do with turtles and the sturgeon.
So cool, but they're in the snakes.
Yeah, it's so more complicated. Cool. Our veterinary staff does it. They do a great job.
That's the big advantage that you've mentioned before is the fact that we have an entire veterinary staff on hand to do things like
yes, it takes a lot of the guesswork out, and it's much less nerve-wracking to have professionals and the resources to do this. The transmitters essentially give each snake its own radio station, and we can go out there and tune in the radio station and track their movements and look at survival. And so we were lucky enough when we first brought the snakes in, one of our females was gravid or snake pregnant, and we raised the snakes in captivity for a couple of years and then released them. We have 2 cohorts because we did 7 in 2024 and 8 in 2025. Just took another year for the other ones to get to appropriate size, but we got a lot of success. So the 7 we released in 2024, all of them lived through the active season, which is, from release to hibernation. All of them lived. We don't expect to see that with snakes that have never seen the outdoors before. They all overwintered or hibernated, and we generally expect to see a lot of mortality or deaths associated with that, right? Because not necessarily because they don't know what they're doing, but because when we think about where we are in the world at this latitude, our reptiles and amphibians spend half of their life literally overwintering. So they go down in October, they come up in April. So that's a long stretch, and so it's very hard on them. And so we expect to see some mortality. All 7 of them emerged in the spring, which is absolutely unheard of. And then we started losing transmitters. The transmitters only last about a year. So we released some this year. Currently, all 8 of them are still alive. And so this has been a really successful program. we're still trying to figure out the hows and whys of the decline, other than, again, this is a wetland species that probably suffered greatly from our loss of wetlands in Ohio. But it's been very popular with the interns because they help us in the zoo side with our captive rearing. So checking on them daily, that kind of thing. And then the releases and tracking them out in the wild. And it's been really popular with them, I think, because more than one of them start off terrified of snakes. And then eventually they come on board and they're just, they're snake babies, right? They spend so much time with them that they're happy to be part of this. And then, being able to be part of a program that is the first seeing this species released for the first time in this area. I don't think it's lost on them.
Yeah.
So it's been one of their favorites.
Yeah. That first batch, that was a historical moment where we're seeing the first batch of copperbelly water snakes re-released back into the wild from that hand rearing.
That's crazy
Cool.
that you say that all 7 survived as well. Through the overwintering. That gives you hope that these guys are going to continue.
Yeah. It's from a conservation standpoint, it's really encouraging because it means we should be able to eventually delist the species quickly. It's also a head scratcher because we don't know what led to their decline. Again, other than that loss of wetlands. And so as a researcher, I think we almost hoped to see something like, a bunch of them got eaten and we know that this is the reason why they declined.
Yep.
Now we're kind of like, well, there's something there that we haven't quite figured out yet. And so it's fascinating, again, from a research standpoint of trying to hone in on these factors that led to their decline.
But that's the good thing, is that your team follows through. There's not just okay, goodbye snakes, have fun, and then you walk away from it. There's always follow through, and you're always making sure that concrete evidence behind just about any reason for anything.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
It's not the last species that you work with, but one of the more local ones are the hellbenders. So what the heck is a hellbender? And what exactly do you do with it?
When I heard that name for the first time, I'm like, it's a what? It's a what bender? Can you just say that one more time?
Yeah,
sorry.
What is a hellbender?
Yeah, so the hellbenders are a really awesome program. They're kind of one of our pilot vertebrate conservation programs, and it involves a lot of our herpetology staff. But hellbenders are the largest salamander we have in North America. They can get the upwards of 3 feet long. They're found in these fast moving streams. And a lot of these species have been on the decline because of water quality and modifications we've made to the landscape. And so the Hellbender program is actually part of a much larger Hellbender partnership that includes Ohio Biodiversity Conservation Partnership, Columbus Zoo, and even Penta Career Center. And so we work with our partners to collect eggs, bring the eggs into captivity. Our herpetology staff over the years has come with a number of innovative ways to take care of the eggs and the hatchlings. Hellbenders, it takes a little bit longer. So we keep them for about 3 years. So they get to be about yay big before they're put back into the wild. All of our conservation programs are unique, and the Hellbenders stand out because of comes from our partnerships. Again, this is a massive partnership that even extends beyond the state. But internally, we work with Penta Career Center because they have an animal science program, and their students are able to raise Hellbenders as part of their class. So in addition to what they're learning with generic species our cats and dogs, their students are able to raise a state endangered species and help us with our reintroduction programs. And so our herpetology staff works very closely with them, but it's been a really awesome experience for those high school students as well.
And with the Hellbenders, their initial population decline, from what I remember, was water quality issues, correct? Yeah. And pollutants in these small streams of waterways, right? Yeah. And so when we're head starting these animals and putting them back into the waterways, there's work that's already happened to make sure that this is a suitable habitat for them, right?
Yeah, it's it's unreal. So the researchers that does it, when they're going back out and putting them, they're making sure the streams are suitable, and they're he puts in such time and care to make sure he's in there with a face mask, looking around the rocks and finding just the right rock. Okay, this one's good for, and they put the Hellbender there. And it's been a lot of these programs, it's really hard to see initial success, but the other year we were captured, 2 of our Hellbenders that had been released about 10 years prior, that at least one of them was guarding eggs. So it's reproducing. That's a huge step for these programs is, we release them, example with the snakes, they're eating, they're moving, they're overwintering. Are they actually a part of that population? Are they reproducing? And these Hellbenders being on eggs is a huge step.
I remember that. I remember when that was reported and pictures were sent over and how massive of a deal that was. Because I mean, 10 years later, and that individual is still contributing to that population. How cool.
And that's like one of the benchmarks for these reintroduction programs is, because we can cover a lot of bases, but once they start actually contributing to that population via reproduction, that's just like, that's one of our biggest benchmarks.
Yeah. And the eventual goal for all of these programs is to one day leave them behind, because it's the eventual hope, the eventual goal is to get them to a sustainable population where you don't have to supplement that anymore, right?
Yeah. The goal with all of these is to be able to walk away someday. We don't want to be doing this in perpetuity just because it's a warm fuzzy. We want to be able to actually have an impact on these populations and get them to the point where, like, okay, they're self-sustaining. We can back off on this end. We still need to make sure we're doing our monitoring so we don't run into the same issue of sharp population declines again. But yeah, the goal isn't for us to be raising hellbenders, copperbellies, sturgeon, turtles for the rest of the zoo's existence. We would like to be able to get to a point where, like, okay, we've made an impact. We've helped us stabilize these populations. Let's participate in monitoring and make sure they're stable and just, let them do their thing.
And then move on to the next species that needs our help.
Speaking of the next species that needs our help, well, we didn't move on to something else. We've added something else on, and that is wood rats.
Yeah.
Allegheny wood rats. Did not even know that was like a subspecies or a thing, but what can you tell me about this program that's just in its early phases right now?
We got involved in the Allegheny wood rat program. I had a colleague who was like, you should get involved with wood rats. And I said, okay. We worked with the Division of Wildlife, and this has been kind of a unique conservation story. And I keep on saying that. But they're all different. And so we started getting involved with this, and it took, like any of these things, it takes a while to get off the ground. You don't just like, okay, we're doing this. It takes planning. And so one of the ways we got involved early with this program and helped out was Allegheny wood rats are found in the southern Ohio. They're really only now found in Adams County, along the edge of Appalachia. They're like this rocky outcropping specialist. And in addition to habitat loss, one of the biggest factors to their decline are they're very susceptible to a parasite in raccoon feces, Balis ascaris. It's a roundworm. And so again, we come back to these raccoons. I mean, raccoons are not the sole evil in the conservation world.
I don't know. They're eating turtle popcorn. Now they're pooping. It's because
nobody's eating them.
Stuff.
Is what's happening.
Yeah, it's a whole. It's hard to blame the raccoons, but they are definitely a contributing factor. But this raccoon roundworm is pretty nasty. But in wood rats, it's lethal. So where you find high densities of raccoons, you find wood rats declining rapidly because other species can get this parasite and maybe slough it off, or they've got high population numbers and they can handle a few losses. The wood rats, it's very lethal, and you see these sharp declines. And so we started getting involved with this program. What they do is, in areas where they're trying to restore the population for wood rats, is the Division of Wildlife puts out these roundworm baits that are essentially a biscuit pellet thing that has a dose of dewormer. And so raccoons that are in the area, the idea is they find it, get a dewormer dose, and it reduces the density of that parasite so that it's better for the wood rats. And so they deploy these baits annually. And so we worked with our zoo team program. It's actually been really cool watching them. It's like a game for them, so that as they're going through, the baits have to be like a certain weight, or it's designed to be a certain weight.
They're making the baits?
Yeah. So we get the ingredients for the baits for them, and the zoo teams, they make the baits. And so they're supplying Division of Wildlife these baits.
So cool.
And so like when they get their exact measurements, they're cheering, and they have produced a lot of bait. So much so that I need 2 people to help me lift the tote when I drop them off, because they have gone whole hog into this. And supplying Division of Wildlife with these baits has been a kind of our foot in the door, helping us get in this program. And then we eventually received some wood rats to try a pilot breeding program. And just recently we had some success, and we currently have 3 wood rat pups.
Nice.
And so our vets are going to be looking at them, and eventually they're going to go back to the wild. I think these are designated for Indiana. We have a lot of, this is with like a lot of these projects, we're looking at genetics. And so the rats we have are best suited for one area. And so the hope is we get new rats in, and then we'll be putting rats or wood rats back into our Ohio population eventually, and then monitoring them. And so this is, again, another massive partnership because the rats have a lot of space requirements. And so as we go forward, we'll need more room, but we also have multiple institutions involved. So we're all working together.
That's what I love so much about the Toledo Zoo and your programs is that we're always looking out for the little guy. And when you're talking about conservation, rats don't typically come to mind, but they have a role in the ecosystem too, right?
Yeah, all of these species do. It's and again, if you're thinking about like what we're working with, like rats and snakes, most people probably would not even care. But if we look at the big picture, and again, we talk about the role they play in the environment, especially as prey species and other things, we've already lost too much. When we look at our ecosystems and our environments, we have lost so much, we've given up so much that, again, I feel it's our responsibility to try to preserve what we have left. And because it is going to eventually impact us, it may not, again, be apparent in the short term, but it will eventually. And like I said, we started to see that with some of these wildlife diseases, invasive species, things like that. I think we have this responsibility to help make sure that our children, the next generations, can see the same things we did. Just that it's there and they know it's there, I think is really important. And, things like the sturgeon, these longest species, is like a legacy we're leaving, and that's why, the popularity of some of these programs is the species we're releasing are going to outlive us, and the next generation will hopefully be able to see those. And that's why we've been so successful, I think, in getting people on board with these programs.
Yeah. I love that with the sturgeon program really quick, that we're able to inspire so many people because we host a public event every year to release all, 3,000 sturgeon that you guys raise up between here and Genoa.
Yeah.
So cool. It's a free event. People just come out to the zoo, you go down to the docking area, and you can go, here's your bucket with a lake sturgeon in it, and you just go down and you release it out at the dock. What a cool program. I've brought my own kids out. I know you've brought your own kids out to kind of just see firsthand what conservation looks like and the final step to that program for that batch of fish. Even my own daughter come back year after year after year. And so cool.
No, that's one of my favorite parts about the sturgeon program is being able to involve the public. Because a lot of these species, we have worries about illegal collection and not wanting to reveal where they actually are. So it's hard to take people out and say, okay, here's a turtle release, or here's a snake release, because you wouldn't want someone to be like, oh, okay, I know where that is. I can go sell these things and turn a profit. The sturgeon, they move around so much that it's harder to do that. And so that's one of our programs we let the public in, and they can help us with the release. And it has been. Like the sturgeon release has been one of my favorite things in terms of, engaging with the public. We have partners in educational booths, we have activities, and then just letting people be part of our conservation efforts is just, it's fun.
And they love it. So many people come out.
That event has merch too.
It's got merch.
They're buying their own
everything.
sturgeon plushies and sturgeon
besides
t-shirts.
the fact you can sponsor a sturgeon, and then if that sturgeon's recaptured and that pit tag is scanned, you're notified that your sturgeon was found. How cool. Oh, so
you got a good fish.
You got a good fish.
That leads me to my first Zoomies question.
Yes. So we have like a whole section on our podcast where we call it the Zoomies.
Zoomies.
Many animals get the Zoomies. We know our domesticated animals will get the Zoomies in the morning, right? So we go through our Zoomies. We talk about some
silly facts.
Who knows what Caitlin pulled up for us today?
I just find some silly stuff and I ask you these questions. So my first Zoomie question, do turtles get Zoomies?
I've never seen cute little turtles turn into such voracious predators when you give them fish. They go from being these cute little turtles to just like ripping things apart. Like these little turtles that you're just like, oh, they're so cute. And you give them fish and something clicks.
Monster.
And then, they're just these absolute monsters, just like chunks of fish in their mouth. Like, rah.
I want to see that.
So I think that would be a yes, because I've seen our native turtle yard. Our
native turtle yard is one of my favorite spots to go into because you walk into that beach and they hear your keys jingle and it's the turtle apocalypse. Yeah. And they're moving fast and they're climbing over your shoes and they're biting your ankles. Not actually.
So many. What is over 100 turtles in that space? Every one of them are coming at you.
They're coming out of the water and it looks crazy, but they all are just so excited to get some worms.
Yeah.
So yes, turtles do get Zoomies. That is what I've learned from that. My next Zoomies question, we kind of already went over it. I said, is it true that lake sturgeon were so populated back in the day that you could walk across the mommy on their backs? When you kind of said that might be a exaggeration, but I think it would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. A whole sturgeon bridge.
Yeah, sturgeon bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
My last Zoomie question is, do you prefer the name lasagna lizard or snot otter for hellbenders, the nickname?
I think snot otter just because it sounds more fun. Like I do think lasagna lizard kind of captures the wavy kind of side of it. But snot otter just sounds more fun.
I do also.
otter's very
And
fun.
I've gotten to, like, when we went out to release them with Katie, the herpetologist, she let me hold one. And it's real slimy.
They are legitimately like very
Snot.
goopy.
It's like holding a
mucusy,
booger.
slimy. They're exactly what you think. Like, you know, a lot of people are like, I don't want to touch a snake. It's going to be all slimy. That's slimy.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking of. But
Yeah.
snakes are not slimy.
No.
They're just very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
You had one more listed here.
Oh, I
Have
didn't
you
know.
ever
if-
tasted?
Yeah, I did have one more
We're talking
listed
about
here.
how harvesting lake sturgeon
Mm.
caviar is bad, but
Yes.
does it taste good?
Is it good?
I've never had lake sturgeon caviar.
No?
It kind of goes against like the whole.
I don't know, because when we went up there with you, you're pushing the eggs out of this fish, and you told me, you're like, that's a lot of money right there.
Yeah,
and
it
I was
is.
like, do I get a spoon? Like, you've never tried it?
No, it's the caviar process refines it and it's very like salty. So
Okay.
I've had other caviar, or like it's mostly just like a salty thing on a cracker, but I've never had lake sturgeon caviar.
Okay.
I've never been able to actually wrap my head around why it's so popular.
Right.
Other than just like one of those fancy, like I'm eating fish egg kind
I'm
of
eating
things.
fish eggs. Yeah.
Anyone who has tried to run a side hustle for lake sturgeon caviar it's not ended well for them.
Oh,
Good to know.
I
Good
would
to
bet.
know.
I would bet. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Matt, for being on here with us. It's been great chatting with you. Again, there was so much more to bring up, and we were just so constricted within this amount of time, which has been an hour. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm glad that we were able to discuss as much as we have been able to, but
Yeah.
that just means you'll have to come back on here and chat with us
Yeah.
another time.
Yeah, we've got a lot of programs. We're always expanding, always doing something new.
Yeah.
And so
We didn't even touch on the international stuff. So that's a whole,
That's a whole
nother
chapter.
episode. It's a
Yeah,
whole-
because
Yeah.
they all report back to you there too.
Yep.
So
Uh-huh.
we will take that second opportunity to catch up on all the international stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thanks again.
Yeah.
To show our appreciation, we have
Oh, he
created.
doesn't even know about this.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen our Wall of Fame posters in the background. These are all of our
These are all
past
previous
guests.
guests.
Okay.
And so for each episode, we make your own poster. And so for you, you are the Supreme Swamp Supervisor.
Nice.
I should have put Supreme Black Swamp Supervisor.
Yeah, it works.
But you got a little copperbelly here, a sturgeon, a little turtle, and we're Shell-ebrating Conservation.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we're gonna add you to our Wall of Fame. We're gonna
Well, thank
ask
you.
for your
Yep.
your signature.
I'll hand this to you.
And while you're doing
Thank
that, I will go over some very exciting things happening here at the Toledo Zoo in fall. Starting in October, we have our Harvest Fest. Harvest Fest is one of my favorite times of year at the zoo. It's decorated so beautifully. There's pumpkins, there's mums, there's flowers, there's spooky dooky stuff.
Spooky dooky. I like that. Spooky dooky.
It's all spooky dooky. I love Halloween. I love fall. It's great. So definitely come out for Harvest Fest.
And- Oh.
Go for
I'm
it.
sorry. I was going to say.
Spooky dooky?
You were in the zone
I
there.
am.
I was just going to say, like, if you've been to Harvest Fest before, you should definitely come back because they do new things every year.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Giant pumpkin displays, great food. I tried one of their mac and cheeses, the like loaded mac and cheese for Harvest Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious. Come out and get that. We also have October 9th, our You at the Zoo college night. If you're a college student, come on out. I know that a lot of you guys are starting the semester. Maybe you're a freshman in college and you're looking for things to do around the Northwest Ohio region. If you're looking for something to do at night or on the weekends, you can come out to the zoo. And at this college night, we will be offering discounted memberships.
Yeah, it's
Like extremely discounted memberships.
It's a great way to get into the adulting world. Where you
Yes.
can come out and not only just enjoy yourself for the night, but the membership pricing gets knocked down a crazy amount for college kids. And I'm telling you guys, if you come out and you grab a membership, that is such a low cost to come out to the zoo all year long.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever you have a free weekend or a free day where you're not doing something, you're going to be bored. And it's like, what do I do today? Oh yeah, I can just go to the zoo for free now because I have a membership.
Exactly. And what else are we doing on college night? We're going to be feeding you. If you're tired of dining hall food, are you tired?
Dining hall
Hold on.
food.
Are you tired of dining hall food? Is it messing with your tummy? Come on out to You at the Zoo college night where we will feed you. Because I know it messed with my tummy. Oh, come out for college night, guys. October 11th, we have our Sturgeon Fest. Like we talked about in this episode, you can come out, get your little bucket of a sturgeon, put them down the slide, and make an impact on conservation.
And that event is completely free for the public to just show up
Yep.
and help out.
Mhm.
But if you want to, we're going to have all kinds of vendors down there, live entertainment, and you can sponsor a sturgeon tag. So each little individual sturgeon has a little what's called a pit tag inside of it that can be scanned and identified. So if you sponsor an individual sturgeon, if it's recaptured, you're notified if that sturgeon is recaptured.
Pretty dang cool. We also have October 16th and 17th, Little Boo presented by Meyer. This is for our preschool, toddler age children to come out and go trick-or-treating at the zoo. Such a fun event. I love working this event.
It's sometimes so cute.
Yeah, we'll hand out candy to them and all the little costumes are adorable. And it's just a nice, safe place for the kids to go trick-or-treating during the day. After Little Boo on October 18th and 19th, we have Pumpkin Path. This is for our school-age children to come out and they can also trick-or-treat. There's going to be some activities, character meet and greets. It's just a great time to come out and go trick-or-treating at the zoo.
Yep.
Such a fun experience. After that, on October 21st through the 23rd, we have our symposium where we are going to be highlighting all of the amazing conservation work that we do. Matt, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about the symposium because there's a lot that you're going to be speaking on at this event, correct?
In honor of our 125th anniversary, we're having a conservation symposium here highlighting the work Toledo Zoo does. So on the first day, it's going to focus on local conservation. Second day is highlighting our international programs. Then third is really highlighting our education and outreach, which is a critical role in all of this. And then there's also going to be a gala on that third night. So if you want more information on our conservation programs in general and have the availability, it should be, this should cover all the things that we missed here today.
You are exactly right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, such an exciting event that it's going to be massive because of the number of people that were flying into the country to talk about it, especially those international programs.
If you're sitting here listening and you said, I want to hear more about these turtle eating popcorn raccoons or more about these wood rats or the sturgeon, come on out to the symposium. You're going to learn so much and you will might have the opportunity to speak to some of the individuals that are working with it.
Yeah, it's completely free to the public, right?
Yes. And then, again, that second day too, with our international programs, we're bringing in the researchers that are doing this on the boots on the ground. And so people have the opportunity to hear straight from the mouth of the people doing the work, how the programs are going, get their questions answered and that kind of thing.
Open to the public. It's free to RSVP. Everybody has to RSVP to be able to attend, but I think we're feeding everybody too. So
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win. You get to show up, you hear all kinds of talk about animals that you may have never even heard of, and then get a free meal on top of it. Like such a cool event. And we're so excited for it. We'll be live streaming the whole thing. That's going to keep us busy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
After all of that, we have Pumpkin Stomp and Chomp on October 25th, where all of the pumpkins that are used for decorations on grounds will be given out to our animals where they can stomp and chomp them. I specifically love watching the elephants.
Yes.
And I remember little baby Kirka last year, she was trying with all her might to crush a pumpkin. Mom had to step in, but maybe this year, now that she's over 1,000 pounds, I'm sure she can crush a pumpkin.
Absolutely.
So come on out and see baby Kirka stomp and chomp. Wrapping up Harvest Fest on November 1st, we have F&M Bank Roar and Pour. This is a bourbon tasting event and cigar tasting lounge experience, right?
Yes. Every year for this event, I absolutely love the vibe of this event. It's just taking place in the evening, night hours. There's tons of fire pits set up because we're getting into those chillier days now. Everybody's all bundled up. But then at all these different drink stations, yes, you get to try the bourbon. You do bourbon cocktails. You do a cigar lounge, but every single one of these stations have food offerings too. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. The stuff that our catering department prepares for that event is so, so nice.
It is a fun event. Definitely come out for that one.
It warms the soul.
It does warm the soul. All throughout October, we also have some wonderful horticulture workshops. We have Plants for All 5 Senses. We have fall flower arranging garden workshops. We have wreath making workshops. So come on out, hang out with our girl Mandy, and she can make some really fun fall decorations for your home.
Anything you sign up with Mandy, we promise you will not regret it. You will walk away from that experience with a wealth of knowledge and something beautiful to bring home with you.
And some laughs because she is.
And some laughs.
She's a silly lady. We love Mandy. And if you can't remember everything that I'm saying, go check out our website on our Harvest Fest page. All of these events and more will be listed.
And thank you all again so much for tuning in. It's been a really great journey just through this first year of episodes, and we've still got a few more to go. So be sure that you don't miss those. We are posting these on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and if you want to watch us, which I highly suggest, it's so much fun, we are out on YouTube as well. Make sure you also follow us on our other platforms. We're constantly posting content on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as well. All kinds of fun updates and shenanigans that we're up to on those platforms too. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Nice.
Cool.
Does your tummy hurt?
Does your tummy hurt?